Welcome to my SPORE UFO Spotlight, and I'm continuing on with starships from the Star Trek universe, and these are alien starships, or ships which are built by races outside of the Federation, or United Federation of Planets. First off, though, I need to say all of these creations were built by people other than myself, and I found them to be very good models of the different types of starships, and that's why I picked them out. So I don't claim any credit for creating any of these. First off, though, we're going with the classic Romulan Warbird, and as far as I know, this was featured in, I don't know if more than one episode, but I know of one episode where this was actually in the original series Star Trek with Captain Kirk and Spock and McCoy. Now, in that episode, this Romulan warship wasn't capable of warp speed, and I don't know why they actually chose to make that a feature of the episode. Frankly, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but yeah, supposedly it couldn't reach warp speed, and you can see the little warbird design on the bottom there. Move over to the Klingon D7 battle cruiser. Now this is the ship that was typically piloted by the Klingons. This was the design and was used in a lot of episodes. Now they also ended up using this exact same model for later episodes to be piloted by the Romulans, and they created the backstory that the Romulans bought the ships from the Klingons, but as far as I know, it's basically they just were reusing models that they'd already created, to save money and whatnot. And here we have a Katanga class battle cruiser, and it says very similar to the design of the Klingon ship I just showed. And this was, I think it wasn't actually featured in the original series Star Trek, but they did have it in Star Trek the Motion Picture and in later movies, and maybe also even up into Star Trek The Next Generation. But like I said, it has a very similar design to the other D7 battlecruiser, but of course added details to make it look more sophisticated and whatnot. Let's go to this, which is the Vorta class attack cruiser. Now, this represented a very much larger Klingon ship, and one that would actually pose a threat on its own to the Starship Enterprise D, the one piloted by Captain Picard. Whereas the last Klingon ship, the battlecruiser, was smaller and from an older era, these Vorta cruisers were a more potent threat on their own. But oftentimes they'd decloak off the hull of the Enterprise in numbers of 2 or 3 and, provide a cliffhanger moment, if you will. Next up, we have the Klingon Bird-of-Prey. This is very, very good replica. I went through the SPORE website and looked through several, and I mean, this one is just pretty darn good. I mean, to the angle of the wings and everything. Now, the Bird-of-Prey was featured very prominently in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, which was actually, I believe, directed by Leonard Nimoy. And I won't get too much into the plot of that movie, but basically the Enterprise crew had to pilot one of these and save the Earth. So, as well as having a significant role in that movie, it did feature in other Star Trek movies as well as in the Next Generation series. Okay, and we're going to the Romulan Warbird. Okay, this I can only imagine was a really hard ship to replicate in the SPORE building design, or whatever you would call it, UFO creator. Just from the sheer number of details that need to be put into the ship. If you've seen any of the pictures or you're familiar with the ship from the different shows or movies, just a huge ship with just tons and tons of details. And when I kind of played around with the SPORE creator, I did see a part much like this front section, so I know how they did that, but so much of the rest of this is just, it's pretty amazing. And where they're actually off in some of the details, it's fairly insignificant, enough so that you can, if you're familiar with the ship, recognize this immediately. And now the Warbird, the Romulan Warbird, I believe was actually a larger ship than the USS Enterprise D, and actually had a stronger weapons armament than the Enterprise, but wasn't as fast as the Enterprise was. So that was more or less the balance between the two ships, the Romulan and the Federation ship. Next up, we have to go with very famous Borg Cube. And again, I found a lot of creations, a lot of Borg Cubes, and this is the one I felt really represented it well. Again, something really hard to replicate because the sheer size of how large a Borg Cube is supposed to be. To get in all of the tiny little details with the creator, it's pretty amazing how well they did here. And they kind of got the green glow going. Now, a Borg Cube is just a very immense ship with a very odd design, being a perfect cube. And the Enterprise D, which by itself is quite a large ship, is dwarfed by a Borg Cube. The Enterprise would only take up like maybe a section from here to here on one of these things from its length. Just an immense ship with thousands and thousands of Borg drones on it. And the Borg Cubes were a threat off and on throughout the Next Generation series, and made a pretty significant comeback in Star Trek First Contact, the movie, and also played a significant role in the Star Trek Voyager series. Going to Ferengi Marauder. This is, of course, a Ferengi ship. First featured in an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, and not really seen in a whole lot of other episodes or movies. I don't I can't think really of any, but I know of the particular episode where basically Ferengi made their first appearance in the Star Trek universe, when the Next Generation crew encountered them at a planet. It's a very interesting design for a ship, and the maker of this model here did pretty good with it, shape and color for this. And we have, let's see, a Cardassian Galler class warship. Now these first entered the Star Trek universe in the Star Trek Deep Space Nine series. The Cardassians played the role of the main villain of that series for the most part of it, up until the Dominion War, where they were actually still the enemy, having sided with the Dominion from the Gamma Quadrant. Basically, Deep Space Nine was a star station ship. I don't know. It was next to a wormhole, and eventually the Dominion started invading through the wormhole. The Cardassians sided with them, and this was the main ship that the Cardassians were using and would attack Federation forces with. Now, having mentioned the Dominion, this here is a Dominion battleship, and I really like this one. Of course, from the standpoint of its accuracy to the actual model from the show, but also just the overall design. This one I wouldn't mind using in the game itself for my own ship. And of course, the Dominion, like I said, played the villains into the later part of the Deep Space Nine series, nearly causing the destruction of the Federation. And the Dominion War leads right up to the end of the modern Star Trek series, and through all of the episodes. And if you're at all familiar with the Star Trek Universe online game, that takes place pretty much right after the Dominion Wars. So it's ships like this that nearly led to the destruction of the Federation and put it in the position of being actually at war with the Klingon Empire, where they had been allies with the Klingons. And I'd like to go to this one here. This is a Biochip of Species 8472. And as it says up here in the description, that not much is known about the race 8472. The name 8472 comes from a Borg designation, and the Voyager crew member 7 of 9, I believe she joined the crew as they were trying to team up with the Borg to fight this species. And they're from fluidic space, so they're not even from basically the same dimension as the rest of the Star Trek universe, or species, or whatever. I think the Borg encountered them, and that led to 8472 invading our galaxy and basically going to war with all organic life or sentient life. So the organic ship is obviously somewhat of a living organism itself, and again, not much is known about it. I believe, though, this is like a central weapon, an extremely powerful central weapon, and these are kind of ships they could actually take on Borg cubes, usually in numbers, but they had weapons that could actually destroy the Borgs quite easily. And finally, we're going to go to Andorian battle cruiser. No, excuse me, attack cruiser. It says attack ship right there. Now this, again, as I did with the last Star Trek Spotlight, this is going into the prequel era of Star Trek, of the same era as the Enterprise NX-01, captained by Captain Jonathan Archer, played by Scott Bakula. And I like the ship here. I like the design. I'm not immediately familiar with how close it is to the actual ship from the series, but I do like how the model maker here put everything together. I really like it. But yes, the Andorian Cruiser. The Andorians are a blue-skinned race with little antenna on top of their head, and they were first shown in Star Trek the original series, but throughout all of the other series they didn't really play a role up until the prequel series of Star Trek Enterprise, where they show how they, along with humans and Vulcans, were basically the founding species of the Federation. Well, that's what I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my little Trek-obsessed journey through the alien starships. And until next time, everyone, take care.